Hey guys, Michael Ketchen here with another episode of the Michael Ketchen Show, and I'm joined by one of my best friends, Nico Roe. Nico, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
I feel pretty honored. Is this your first ever podcast appearance?
This is my first ever podcast.
A lot of pressure. Different setting. We're out here in beautiful Montana. We just had an amazing mastermind a couple days together. Some unreal conversations with some even better people. What was a big takeaway for you?
I liked a lot what Xander had said to me about on that quote of the risk isn't achieving your dreams, it's the risk is settling for something that's short of those. And so I think, for me, he'd also mentioned that I wasn't aiming high enough. I'm aiming for things that I'm confident that I can hit.
Yeah.
And I'm selling myself short.
So it's almost like instead of playing to win, you're playing not to lose.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing, especially giving you background, obviously a high performer. So former Navy SEAL commander, we met and we kind of launched Project 2222 together.
Yeah.
So just give a little overview of what we got cooking there.
Yeah. So, I think we live in one of the most special places in the world. And that didn't come by accident. That came from generations of men and women making really hard sacrifices on behalf of the greater good.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of problems that plague our country today that get a lot of airtime, and one that I feel is uniquely neglected is the fact that we have 22 veterans taking their lives every day.
Yeah.
And why aren't we talking about that? Why isn't that being screamed from the rooftops? There's been so many times where I've dropped that number, which might be on the low end.
Yeah, I know you've said that a couple of times. You think it actually might be higher.
Could actually be higher.
To even think about, yeah.
I mean, that's a SEAL platoon a day taking their own lives. I mean, if we were losing that many guys overseas, it would be all stop on a war effort. What do you mean we've losing 22 guys day after day? That's unprecedented, and I think that it commands more airtime and action from folks of means. And so you and I were talking about all the different veteran organizations that there are out there, and they're doing beautiful things for veterans. But my point to you was, what good is a camping trip or a new set of golf clubs or a lesson in cooking if you're thinking the whole time you're not thinking very highly of yourself. You're speaking poorly to yourself. You're numb to what's going on around you. Your quality of life got left behind somewhere, and that's what I think inspired us on this discussion of 2222. How can we find a way to legitimately not just do something nice for a vet, but give them back the quality of life that they're absolutely entitled to.
100%. And what fired me up when we talked was, I feel like we're not circling around the problem, we're going at the root cause.
Right.
And we're raising money through Project 2222 for 100% pass through to vets, which again stands for, because I always butcher this.
Yeah. This is an easy one to get tripped up on. So Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, acronym VETS, helps vets. And so it's easy to get tangled up on that one. But yeah, what we're doing right now is we are channeling dollars towards Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions.
Yeah.
They are not the only ones doing this, but I'm a beneficiary, I'm a grant recipient of that program. And so I'm absolutely qualified to speak on what they can do.
100%. And what hit me is, I obviously, anybody who's followed the pod, fans of the show know I'm very indebted. I'm big on veteran support because we get to enjoy this beautiful nation, greatest country ever, in my opinion. Largely because of veterans and the sacrifices they make. And where we connect, I never thought of it that way before, about here's a real solution to, as you beautifully described it, making the whole man again, right? Putting color back in the world. And where my brain went right away was, this is a math problem. This is a math equation. Yeah. We've got 22 veterans a day committing suicide. Well, if we sponsor 22, well, we can just flip the whole math. So what we're working on actively is a triage approach to raise some funds, to funnel through, and then also kind of help as we grow this, transition guys back into society, just any way we can help. But speaking of transitions, even outside of that, what's amazing about you, and I've said this, is you're also an entrepreneur. Dude, what is it like going through the military where it's like, I'm going to grind you down, because you have to in some ways, then also have that entrepreneurial spirit? I know, like, your story is so wild. I go some ways, like, even like your mother was an entrepreneur, like this, he just drops this on me, guys. You gotta understand, we're in a meeting, he's like, oh yeah, my mother was this fashion designer. Like, I Google it, I'm like, oh my God, like people are still selling her dresses today. And dude, what is that like, entrepreneur background? How's that all tied to the military and getting back into being an entrepreneur?
I mean, being an entrepreneur, you're addicted to problem solving.
Yes, it's a great way to put it.
You're a problem solving addict. And that spirit has a lot of value in our military, especially in the community that I was in and got to be a part of for just over a decade. We're looking at complex problems and we have this space and latitude to bring our creativity and our imagination to solving those problems. Which is so fun to do it on behalf of the U.S. government and at the expense of our nation's enemies. That's just a delightful way to spend your time, like fantasizing about how to make their lives more difficult at the benefit of our country. Big fan of that. But to me, as an officer, what it initially started, Mike, was I became an orphan at about 18, and navigating that process is, an immense amount of things are going on at once. But I think for me, it was very simple. It was, the definition of home really changed. It went from an address to really just like people that I could drop my suitcase and spend a weekend with. Those, my homes became very disaggregated. And so for me, my drive was
just dropping the word fucking disaggregated. Like, now we're all gonna have to go Google that, but I love that. Look at Navy SEALs, that's show offs, keep going, just bust your balls in.
So for me, I wanted it to be an address again. And so I decided, like, hey, I need to figure out ways to reach that end. Well, I reached that end a lot quicker than I'd imagined, and then it became, well, listen, lots of stuff can happen during the course of a career, and especially as an officer, you could find yourself in the crosshairs of just an unfortunate series of events that are beyond your control. Also, you could find yourself having to make a really hard decision and say something like, I'm not going to do that, and I will resign now. And I'm going to follow my sword here. I'm not going to do it. Well, if you don't have anywhere to fall back financially, how can you make that call? I mean, you can, and I respect the men that have done it. But for me, I wanted that fallback option. I needed to have that pathway to financial independence to complement what I was doing as an officer. I felt like it made me a better soldier, and I also felt like it made me a better leader, because now I could advise my guys, hey, like, don't buy a motorcycle, buy a rental and let your tenants buy you a motorcycle. And just kind of short circuiting, what I'm sure has driven you up a wall, where people can focus too much on things and not assets that can then provide the things. So you have a sustainable approach to the things that you want. And so, when I got to the 10, 11 year mark where I needed to make that decision, hey, do I want to continue to 20 or do I want to off ramp? I also wanted to be positioned so that if I wanted to stay and do 20 years, it's not because I had to. It's not because I needed that pension. I wanted it to be because it was still my passion. I was still fired up about the mission. I still wanted to be there. I was loving what I was doing. And I'm very grateful for that thought, because it enabled me to make the choice, and I ended up, separating.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it also, to reframe it too, because we can talk about OODA looping here in a second. I feel like going through the teams, getting into a leadership position, now you're starting to build your roster. And have you seen, maybe a way to frame this is a couple of parallels that has helped you going into the private sector, but also maybe some frustrations around, we have a good friend, Ian Bishop, and he said it all the time. He's like, when you're in the SEALs, you replace a SEAL with a SEAL, right? And it's like, now it's like, you're welcome to some of the problems we're all having with human capital. What are some parallels and maybe some stark differences between those two worlds that now you've lived in, and now you're scaling, you're starting to build your wealth, your empire, your intentional life? What are some similarities and some differences?
Something that I think is a direct translation, and I think it can be sorely lacking outside the military, is this concept of making your people's problems your problems. That's a one-to-one. When I make my assistant's problems and what she's concerned about, and I don't go out of my way to say, your schedule is cleared, that's a priority, like address that family emergency, I'm letting her down.
Yep.
And that's the exact approach I would take to my time in service. I think, so taking ownership of your people and being passionate about their success, like what you've said in the past, which I love, is, if I become a billionaire, it's because I've made thousands of millionaires.
Yeah.
It's not an individual sport. This is a team sport. And so I'm keeping that at front of mind now that I'm in the private sector. I think that absolutely applies. I also think, honoring a handshake deal when there's not a contract in place and the fine print isn't totally dialed, like I still put a premium on that. I'm thinking of an individual right now where we didn't have a contract and we're finding our way to a solution on something, but if we went to the mat and I took him to court, like there'd be there wouldn't be much to talk about there, but I gave this guy my word and I'm treating our common relationship with respect. I think that can get really kind of mushy and gray.
Yeah.
And then things that are different, I think that bias towards your teammates, that's very different. So rather than starting with, well, how is my time quantified here? How am I going to be rewarded for the time that I'm putting into something?
Yep.
Instead of, hey, this needs to get done and we can figure out all that fine print later. Like, there's just work.
Yeah.
Because we come from a world where if I work no days, I get a paycheck. If I work all the days and don't sleep, I'll get the same paycheck. There's no bonus. I mean, there's bonuses, but they're not going to raise your eyebrows. So, that thought process where it's like, we have a task, we have a mission, we have an obligation to meet here. We can figure out where the benefit comes from later, but this is what we need to do. And I find myself now in a place where I could be easily taken advantage of, because I'm not going to start out by saying, whoa, what's my hourly rate here? What am I going to get paid from this? What am I getting from this? It's really uncomfortable. And I think a lot of guys that come out of the military grossly undervalue themselves because that's not how we think.
Yeah, you're going from mission to, you know what I mean? And there's a transition there. And that's a great insight that when you shared that with me the first time, I'm glad you shared it again, where it shows it's like there's little things that we take for granted, but they really are two different worlds.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think some of the mentorship and some of the guidance is really lacking.
Right.
You said something to me before. You're like, guys get out and it's like they either go get an MBA to stall or they go back and start doing contract work.
Yeah.
And now you've got all this human capital, which is what we all need in this country, ingenuity, smart thinking, great people, entrepreneurs building it up. And we're kind of just like, here you go. And no one's guiding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something I think we can solve. I think we can solve that. All right. So, like I said before, we kind of keep these short and sweet. So I really want to hit home with this. We're going to do a couple of clips. We're going to link to Project 2222. But if you could leave anybody who's going to see us with some words on what vets and Project 22 is going to do, Project 2222 is going to do, Give some parting words. We're going to link to it in the show notes, and we're going to make a challenge when this drops. We need to raise at least another $10,000, because $10,000 to vets saves one veteran. You can be part of the solution. So any parting words for the people, Nico?
What I'd say is we have a problem right now as a country, and there's a lot of guys that need your help. And an organization like Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, they have a pathway, and it's not just about employment. It's not just about offering a special moment. It's about bringing color back into somebody's life in a lasting way. So the dollars that you put towards that cause, I don't know what version of me would be sitting here, if at all. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for them. They've helped a lot of my friends, a lot of my mentors, and they need help to do that for more people. We have a problem, but there's hope.
Beautifully said. He's Nico Roe. I'm Michael Ketchen, and as always, bet on yourself.